So here we are, tabula rasa. That sense of experience, of expansion, of infinity. We're going to now do a little bit of damage to that because we're going to try to label it. I'm going to conceptually place at the basis of that existence this field of consciousness. The capacity of the human mind to connect with the field of universal intelligence or consciousness is ever present, and yet we don't cultivate that habit within our modern society. And in this modern scientific age, we also know this as the unified field. But the core concept here is that that field of intelligence underlies every life form in the universe. And if we're going to build an economy that is truly sustainable, we actually have to build from that place of unity that respects all life. If you look at the pattern, the human species has not had a lot of consideration or room for the balance of life on the planet. So one thing happens out of this field of consciousness that is also universal to living beings, which is that moment of conception. Boom! A heart starts beating. Every one of us has gone through that moment of conception. Nevertheless, that gift of life, who among us would take this gift of life and sacrifice it for a pile of $5 billion? 10 billion? What's your price? Often we sacrifice life because we have to, or we feel like we need to go after the cash. And certainly the track record of humanity in relationship to money says there's a lot of willingness to do that. And therein, I think, is the mistake of the intellect in the modern economy. We mistake cash for wealth. We mistake cash for life. Out of this gift of life comes emotions. Emotions give way to a brain that starts developing and starts ordering the universe through our experiences as our brain develops. It takes till about 25 years before the human brain is fully developed. But out of those emotions, out of those experiences, out of that culture that that being comes into, we develop our set of beliefs. And beliefs matter in the biggest of ways, and they are universal to every individual, has their own collection of beliefs based on experiences, their culture, etc. Most of the time, those beliefs are formed by a parent, the religion that the family is involved in, or the schooling. By the time you're 8 years old, most of our lifelong beliefs and commitments are encoded into our being. And it's really quite astonishing, what we adopt as a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old, usually through some form of trauma, and then we carry through the rest of our lives, never examining that belief, and yet it's driving the show, right? So part of becoming a fully expressed adult, in my view, is to invest some time going back and really tracing through what those beliefs are that guide us so that we can actually stand in the present and make conscious choices as an adult. From that foundation of beliefs, those beliefs even come before our thoughts. Much of our thoughts are a function of our beliefs. So it's a very below the surface yet very important dynamic. And I bring all this up in the context of what I call the true wealth tree, which is the investment framework. Out of your beliefs and thoughts, grow your ethics and values. And this is the foundation of a healthy life, one that is consciously arrived at rather than a default. Now, in the area of building an investment model that I think can deliver on this idea of an integral bottom line economy, this is very, very important to establish this as the foundation from which we enter into the investment world. Most commonly, if we show up to a financial planner, the individual there will involve you in a financial planning, a life planning process. This is very, very important. I'm not belittling this at all. I'm just saying that the state of the industry ignores this dimension and keeps you on the surface. My contention is if we're going to create integral bottom line, the individual shows up to this appointment having really done some work here. So here is where we go into action about building the green economy. In building a portfolio, we have public markets that we consciously apply what we call avoidance screens or positive screens. Say, look, animal testing is not part of my world. I don't want to invest in companies that depend on going through animal testing or nuclear power or making weapons that kill people or whatever it might be. I do want to invest in human health and well-being. I do want to invest in renewable energy, organic agriculture, etc. So here's where, as investors, we get to actually exercise conscious choice about the style of companies we want to invest in. And one of the elements of socially responsible investing is that it also includes this notion of shareholder activism. I have to say, in the 27 years that I've been in the investment advisory world, I am actually quite optimistic that the evolution of corporate culture around triple bottom line values is evident. Every single S&P 500, which is an index of large capitalization companies, every single one of those 500 companies, including Exxon, is producing what is called an environmental, social, and governance report, or in the lingo of Wall Street, an ESG report. Now, not every company is fully committed to it. Many are doing it simply out of a compliance mentality. But what is evident is that it has become a net new standard. And what we're seeing is Exxon's a great example of, I have this image of a ESG report bolted on to the side of a supertanker, right? Well, we're compliant, but damn the, full speed ahead, right? Well, that's a first step for a corporation to come in and simply say, we're going to do it by compliance only. But what happens over time, and especially in academia and business consulting, I mean, McKinsey is all over this, McKinsey's consulting group, is now we help that corporate culture embed environmental, social governance into the DNA of the company. And you're seeing an awful lot of that going on. So phase one is really in action. And part of my call to action here is, to the degree that you all have investments in, say, mutual funds, you could very likely find the equal or better complement in a socially responsible mutual fund whose management will engage in shareholder activism on your behalf. By harnessing that triple bottom line, I think we create more value for the shareholders in terms of money and for the planet generally. We also have seen the evolution of what we call impact investing. How can we invest in that triple bottom line model to create positive benefits beyond the profit? Organic agriculture, that is a hardwired megatrend. There is a huge unmet demand in the marketplace for organic products. Renewable energy, this is another hardwired megatrend that is well down the road. And then here is, I think, the really quite exciting dimension of building this triple bottom line economy is the area of community investing. You will see at least $1 trillion move from publicly traded Wall Street-centric investments into Main Street investments through the rise of social networking crowdfunding. So what we need to do is we need to redesign new plumbing that goes into Main Street entrepreneurial activities. Within the community investing area, community banking, again, is going to be very, very important to restore that basic service. And so reestablishing community banking through crowdfunding channels is what is coming down the pipe soon. Community currencies, as we saw, will allow for a way to evolve what is a very antique model of currency, generated by a Federal Reserve, trickled down through the economy. Why don't we grow bottom-up currencies that are specifically designed to enhance, say, local food systems, local energy, health and wellness? And again, the rise of social networking and technology is allowing, through our cell phones, for this kind of currency to be launched. And finally, philanthropy, the lighthouse of our life. My belief is no matter where you are in life, there is room to give something, whether it's time, your gift, or your money. But this one is really important to keep this sense of communion or commonality with our neighbors, and it's up to us to creatively think how we engage in philanthropy. So this is the model, in my view, how we reclaim the individual's creative power in the investment process. Right now, we have given away so much of this creativity to an investment house driven by an algorithm. And the problem with that is that the money is creating the world we live in. And if we don't reinsert ourselves and start defining what we care about, we'll get more of the same. And it's a really exciting time to be thinking about what it is you care about and how you'd like to direct your investment capital. The opportunity to grow this into a much more healthy ecosystem is, well, it is right here, right now, to the degree that you can see. Summarizing this all up, at the foundation of all of this is a field of infinite intelligence, of which we are intimately part of. This, I think you could refer to as the unity level of life. All of us share that level of unity. So it's incumbent on us to know that to be true for ourselves, right? How do you know it beyond, to say, an intellectual concept? Well, this is where I think the primary investment has to come. You have to invest your attention to wake up this unified field from which you create your life. And that's a life, I think, that's very worth living. So from unity comes this experience of communion. That's inside your own attention. Innerscape, communion. Out of communion comes ideas consistent with your own dharmic destiny path, and it's incumbent on each one of us to communicate that to others, because out of communication we generate commitments, ideas, agreements, lifestyles, and from commitments, that is the foundation of our community. And when you think about where is the wealth, if this big pile of cash is not connected to this dynamic, it's not very nurturing, right? So we want to grow wealth through this kind of relational dynamic, because that is actually where the true wealth resides. So that is the idea of how we take the big picture cosmology and apply it in our own individual lives. And there is action on our part. How do we invest our attention to produce transcendent experience, to know ourselves to be truly in a unity position in life? That takes some commitment, but it's an investment I think we all are well advised to take on.